There are workshops, and then there are places where wisdom lives, disguised as work. From the outside, it looked like any other carpenter shop. Sawdust on the floor, the smell of cedar and linseed oil, the quiet rhythm of hands making things. But everyone in our village had noticed something about this particular workshop that they couldn't quite explain. In the far corner, half hidden behind a stack of timber and an old workbench, there sat a wooden box, dark with age, sealed with a lock that no one had ever seen opened. People had asked about it for years. The carpenter always smiled and changed the subject. I was 8 years old the first time I noticed it, and I was 12 the night my grandfather finally showed me what was inside, and why the answer was nothing like any of us had imagined. My grandfather was a man who believed that how you did a thing was just as important as what you were doing. He didn't just build furniture. He built it as if each piece had a name, a future, a family waiting for it. I used to watch his hands and wonder how hands that rough could move that carefully. Every joint was fitted twice. Every surface was sanded until it was smooth enough to feel like trust. He never explained why he worked that way. He didn't feel the need to explain things he considered obvious. But sometimes, in the evenings, when the last customer had gone and the lamp was burning low, he would set down his tools and just sit. And those were the moments he would talk. Not about wood, about life, about the things he had seen and the things he had learned the hard way, and the things he wished someone had told him when he was young enough to use the information. Most people, he told me once, brushing shavings from his apron, spend the first half of their life building the wrong things as fast as they can. Then they spend the second half trying to find what they lost. He looked at me with those steady eyes of his. I want better for you than that. I didn't fully understand him then. I was 12, and 12-year-olds are mostly thinking about tomorrow and not much further. But I remembered his words the way you remember a song heard once in childhood. You can't always name it, but when it plays again, something in your chest recognizes it immediately. That particular evening, something felt different. My grandfather had been quieter than usual. The kind of quiet that isn't peaceful, but heavy, like a sky before a storm. He had been working on a chair for 3 weeks, the same chair, going back to it every day and adjusting things no one else would have noticed were wrong. I watched him set it down, walk to the window, and stare at the rain for a long moment. Then, without turning around, he said, "You've been looking at that box since the first day you came in here." I didn't deny it. I told him I had always wanted to know what was in it. He turned to face me then, and something in his expression was different from usual. Not sad exactly, but serious in a way that made me sit up straighter. He crossed the room slowly, reached into the pocket of his work apron, and pulled out a small iron key. "Tonight," he said, "I'll show you." He walked to the corner. He crouched down in front of the box the way old men crouch, carefully, with full awareness of every joint in their body. He fitted the key into the lock. The lid opened with a long, low groan, the sound of something that had been sealed for a very long time, finally breathing again. I leaned forward, certain I was about to see something extraordinary. Old coins, perhaps? A document of some kind? A letter from someone famous? Or something valuable enough to explain the lock, the secrecy, all those years of unanswered questions? But the box held none of those things. Inside, there were 3 items. A small bundle of handwritten receipts held together with a piece of twine. A tiny, half-finished wooden carving of a bird, no larger than a fist, its wings never completed. And beneath both of those, a single folded letter, the paper so old it had gone the color of weak tea. I stared at it all, and then I looked up at him. He was watching me, watching my face the way a teacher watches a student work through
a problem they haven't solved yet. "This is it?" I asked. I didn't mean it unkindly. I was simply confused. He nodded slowly. "This is everything," he said. He picked up the bundle of receipts first. He undid the twine and spread a few of them on the workbench. They were old, some of them decades old. Small amounts, most of them. Jobs he had done in the early years when the workshop was new and customers were few and money was tight. "Every one of these," he said, "represents a person who trusted me with something that mattered to them. A table for a family's first home, a crib for a new baby, a desk for a child who wanted to study." He smoothed one of the receipts flat with his thumb. "I kept them not to remember the money. The money was never much. I kept them to remember the weight of what people bring you when they trust you with their home." He set the receipts down carefully and picked up the small wooden bird. He turned it over in his hands, the finished side smooth and precise, the wings rough and unformed where the carving had stopped. "I started this the week I opened the workshop," he said. "I was going to finish it when the shop was established, when things were settled, when I had time." He paused. That was 40 years ago. He set it down with a gentleness that felt like an apology. "This bird taught me the most important lesson of my working life. Do not save your craft for when conditions are perfect. Perfect conditions are a lie men tell themselves to avoid beginning. You begin now with what you have in the middle of the uncertainty, and the wings get finished along the way, or they don't, but the bird still flies." Then he picked up the letter. He unfolded it slowly, with the particular care you give to something that could fall apart if handled badly. He didn't read it aloud. He just held it for a moment, then looked at me. "This was written to me by the man I apprenticed under when I was 17 years old," he said. "The man who taught me to work wood. He wrote it the year before he died. I have read it so many times I could recite every word without looking." He folded it closed again and placed it back in the box. He wrote, "A man's work is his loudest argument. Not what he says about himself, not what others say about him. His work. Quietly, over years, your work makes the case for you, or against you. Make sure it is making the case you intend." My grandfather sat down on the stool beside the workbench and looked at everything spread out in front of us. The receipts, the unfinished bird, the old letter,
And then he looked at me with a steadiness I have never forgotten. People will always try to sell you a faster way, he said, a shortcut to the result without the years of doing.
And sometimes the shortcut takes you somewhere, but the place it takes you has no foundation. You arrive and you look around and you realize there is nothing under your feet. Because what you stand on in this life is not what you have earned. It is what you have built. And building takes time and honesty and the willingness to keep going when no one is watching and nothing is happening, and it all looks exactly the same as yesterday. He leaned forward slightly. The locked box is not a mystery. It is a reminder. Every time I walk past it, I remember what the work is actually for.
My grandfather passed away the spring after that night. He left me the workshop, the tools, and the locked box. He left the key in his apron pocket, which he had hung on the back of the workshop door, right where it always was. I have opened the box many times since then. I have added things to it. A receipt from my first job, a carving I never finished, a letter I wrote to someone I hope to be in 20 years. It is my box now, and the lock still matters. Not because the contents are valuable to anyone else, but because the act of locking it and unlocking it reminds me every single time that the work is sacred. That what I build with my hands and my word and my time is the truest thing I will ever leave behind. Tonight, I want to ask you one thing before you rest. Think about what is in your locked box. The receipts you have collected, the things you started and never finished, the words someone gave you that you carry still. Are you building something that will still be standing when someone else needs to sit down? If this story gave you something tonight, share it with someone who is building their own life right now and needs to hear it. Stay with us on this journey. Subscribe to Grandpa's Rules for Life, and let's keep opening these pages together, one story at a time. Until next time, live well, my child.